Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Hare and Forbes Machinery House, Pace Farm, Hero Hoists, and Martin's Panel Masters. When a teenager buys an Austin Cambridge in New Zealand for $100 as his first car, then drives it for 10 years through to the eclectic collection of cars we see here today, you are about to see more. That's the passion, and this is Classic Restos. G'day, I'm Fletch, and I thought I'd duck back over to the North Island of New Zealand to bring you some more really cool stuff. And first cap off the rank, local businessman here to New Plymouth in the North Island of New Zealand, Mr. Bryce Barnett and his collection. And let me assure you, there's more chrome in there than what you'll find in a steel bumper bar shop. Now, this unassuming location may remind you of some type of resort. Lay on the deck chair and get your drinks on. But here, there are some sheds of seclusion. And I know why you're here. It's the same reason I am, right? Come with me.
Classic cars form part of my history, or my desire is probably started off when I was an early teenager. And it was probably inspired by a friend of mine's brother having a Triumph Stag. And I always admired that, but I was too young to even drive it, but I appreciated it. And that probably formed a view in my mind of the deep appreciation I had for special cars. When I had the opportunity to be able to buy a car, I realised that if I wanted the cars that I had the desire to own, you weren't going to do it as a young 16-year-old. And property was always my passion, so I had a desire when I left school that I was going to own property before I owned a car. And in March 1971, I bought my first property, and in April 1971, I bought my first car, which was an Austin Cambridge, for $100. However, during those informative years, all my mates, they were having a car every year, and they were escalated from their Ford Escorts right through to, even one of them had a Ford Falcon GT-HO, and he had an E49 Charger, but every year they'd change them. And there was a joke that 12 years later they still owned the car, and then they got married and they had to find a house and took on a big mortgage. And I think the joke back then was that they'd been through 12 cars and hardly afforded a house. I had 12 houses and had an old bomb car. But my car went really well, and I kept that Austin Cambridge for 12 years. I always wanted to own my first car again. Unfortunately, my first car, because we had so much fun and gave it such a hard time, it ended up being in a demolition derby. So we were looking for an Austin Cambridge, but I always had the dream of owning a big American car, and it was the Cadillac was the one that really appealed to me. And I kept on looking at magazines, etc. And I shared my dream with a few of my mates, and I got a ring from one of them the other day. He said, look, I was going for a walk in New Plymouth, and I saw a garage door open, and there was this big white 1967 Cadillac there. And he said, I thought it was just you. And he said it was a little bit tired. I rang up the guy, and he was wanting to sell it. And to be fair, we refurbed that back to really great condition. And it was soon after that we then located a Austin Cambridge in Matamata in the North Island. And I sent one of my guys up to look at it, and I gave him an open check. And I said to him, if it's good, buy it. But I said it's only on one condition, that it must backfire. I was then wanting to reignite my desire to own all the cars that I, as a kid, really admired. And hence ended up with a Triumph Stag, and it's in absolute mint condition. And I just look at cars, and to me, I'm not mechanically minded, but art is what I see in my cars. So, and having an eclectic collection of cars, it's all about the story behind it or the art that it portrays. My collection has been bought from things that have got a special art connotation to them, and or have got memories as a child. I just get so much pleasure, not only in driving them, but just looking at them. It's art that you just don't look at. You can actually get inside and be part of the art and enjoy it. And that's what I like about the cars.
Well, I've got to say how good it is to be back in New Plymouth. I love this place. Returning is always a pleasure, especially when I get to catch up with you, Bryce. Now, it's been quite a few years, mate. It's good to see you again.
Fletch, it's great to have you, and we can host you here. Sorry we've put on such terrible weather for you, but we're still the same here.
I think you're being very nice about it, because usually I get accused by the Kiwis for bringing the rain with me.
Well, I understand in Melbourne yesterday it was freezing cold and that, but Sydney I think was okay. So we won't blame you this time, Fletch.
Bryce, it was quite a number of years ago, since I've been here now. Since that time, a second shed here at your place has been built, and might I say, it's a gorgeous property, this, and hats off to this guy for making the real estate here what you have over the years. But this second shed now comprises another plethora of vehicles. The first one behind us, a 1967 Cadillac. Now this one means a lot to you, doesn't it?
It sure does, because it was really the first car that I acquired at the beginning of this collection. So that's special to myself, and I always wanted to have a big Cadillac, but more importantly, I think it's the car that we as a family have had the most fun in.
Yeah.
And when I say as a family, both my wife and myself, but also the kids, when they've got friends down, it's always the car that they go to the beach in, and it's the one that they have the surfboard hanging out the back seat and playing the Beach Boys on the stereo and loving it.
Now, you might have seen that over the years, perhaps with an E.H. Holden, but I don't think you'd get to see that very often with the 67 Cadillac. One thing I would like to mention though, Bryce, and you alluded to earlier in your interview, is the fact that you're not mechanically minded. What you appreciate here is art, no particular brand. It goes back to when the automobile was really made, and we go back to the pencil on the drawing board from the minds of very creative people to come up with the designs and the shapes which you have here today.
You're right on the button, Fletch. I'm far from mechanically minded. All I know is if it breaks down to look at the battery and to make sure that the that all the spark plug caps are on, but that's about it.
My passion for cars began when Nana and Pop bought their new Toyota Crown. It was Nana's, really. She loved that car. We went everywhere in it. My passion now is just the same, even though my cars are a little different. I've still got Nana's car, couldn't part with it. And I reckon if she was here today, she'd be insured with Shannons too.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
How would you like to double your garage space and work on your cars easily? Well, bring in your own hero with a Lift King hoist. Easy to install models in 1, 2 and 4 post styles. Check the very nifty Spider 2500 portable mini scissor lift. Hero hoists are either Oz certified or carry the Euro CE, your guarantee of quality construction and reliability. I regularly stand under my Lift King, so when you need a bit of a lift, why don't you go stand under yours? If you have a restoration project, Hare and Forbes has the tools that you need. Shrinker stretchers, dollies, mallets, bead rollers, profile gauges, professional panel restoration kits, and so much more. Now I warn you, enter at your own risk because you will end up buying something. So come along to your Cap City store or browse and buy online at machineryhouse.com.au because Hare and Forbes has the range. Martin's Panel Masters has 3 modern accident repair centres. They service Melbourne's inner, outer east and the fast-growing southeast corridor. Your vehicle will receive the best from state-of-the-art repair equipment finished beautifully from computer-based paint mixing systems, finished in Australian compliant spray booths. Martin's Panel Masters, located at Ferntree Gully and Berwick, also Box Hill Panels. Well, Bryce, what do we have here? 1970 Plymouth Superbird. Wow.
Fletch, it is the wow factor here. But I've got to say, Fletch, this is probably one of the cars that breaks my rule of art. Some could say it's so ugly it's beautiful. But the reason why I've got it, I had an opportunity to secure this with all matching numbers, and the opportunity was too good to turn down for such a rare car.
Now these cars, despite over 6 metres in length, in NASCAR trim with their 426 Hemis and a single 4-barrel carb, were capable of running way over 200 miles an hour. As a matter of fact, they were becoming so fast that it became stupid, and then new laws were brought in to reduce speeds at NASCAR. They had steel wheels back in the time, speeds of over 200 miles an hour on steel wheels, and tyre technology then, well, I guess they thought it was state of the art at the time, but when you look back in today's standards, that was quite primitive. These were one heck of a machine. And to think, as gaudy as it is, there's even stories of dealerships that couldn't sell the display cars, and they wheeled them around the back and put them around the back of the dealership because they gave up on them.
It's just hard to believe, but I think that's the thing that's made them so valuable now and such a collector's item, is because they weren't appreciated at the time. They were ugly. And now we've got a car that there is very few left, and I think they're becoming a real icon.
The rear wing in the back is not just a wing either that sits on the top of the rear quarter. That wing goes straight down and through. And did you know, Bryce, and I know that you're going to get through the rest of the day better for knowing this, the whole weight of the car could be picked up by that wing. That's how strong it is in the back of the vehicle.
Fletch, I was not aware of that. And that probably highlights my lack of knowledge on the technical aspects of the car. But I tell you what, I get in here and I drive it, and the noise is beautiful, and it just turns me off electric cars when you get in here. Oh, yeah. And you just feel so good with that noise. Yep. and what that car was in the day.
Nice car, this one, 1969 Mach 1 Mustang. Nice to have in your collection, Bryce.
Absolutely, Fletch. I think everybody's got to have a Mustang in their collection. If they've got any American cars, you must always have a Mustang.
No other build, or no other company, no other make or model got near their sales numbers back in the 60s. 1 million in the first 12 months, unbelievable.
Well, it is unbelievable, but when you actually look at the lines on it, to me, back in that time, it was the ultimate exterior art. It's so appealing to the eye, no matter whether you're a 15-year-old or a 95-year-old. It's got shapes and a line that is timeless.
I think, Bryce, the way that you look at things is tremendous. It's not every day of the week I have an opportunity to speak to somebody that looks at classic cars through a different set of eyes, and I love the art perspective that you take on them.
Thanks, Fletch. That's special to me, and I hope my next question is, because I won't be able to answer it, if you ask me what size motor it's got in there, I don't know.
Oh, Bryce, don't worry. I'd never ask you something like that. Now tell us, what's lurking under the hood?
A motor.
We look around the inside. The original interior still looking fantastic. The only thing I can spot is an aftermarket steering wheel, but hey, that's no biggie. That undoes and takes off, bolt another one back on. That's not a problem. Cosmetically around the car, everything is nice. It's intact. It's how it would have been back in 1969. They're all made out of unobtainium. These cars aren't made anymore. There's no doubt about it. The more and more you see them, and the line of American cars you have here at the moment, it doesn't matter what the make or model is. It's just nice to have, isn't it?
Oh, the words actually can't describe it, Fletch. The Americans in that period of time, they had it. They turned chrome into art. They turned lines into art. They put chrome on places that some cars don't even have places. Yeah. And that's what makes them special.
Well, that's it. If the Americans didn't know what to do with it, they chromed it. Oh, Bryce, how wonderful is this? Back in a time when car manufacturers were so proud of the product that they designed and built. 1955, a Buick Century. I'm almost speechless.
Fletch, 1955 was a good year for lots of things, and the history of this car was I had a certain big birthday coming up, and I had to have a 55 model in my collection, So when I was researching, to me, this type of Buick was the ultimate art that I was looking for a 55. And I found this car in Tauranga, where somebody had brought it in and was going to hot rod it. And when I saw it, my heart sort of went all funny, and I just had to buy it, and we did a ground up restoration. And to me, it's art, and it drives well. As you know, you've driven it, I think, last time you were across, Fletch.
Yeah, that was around 7 years ago. I did around almost 300 Ks in a day. Might not have been quite, at least 250 Ks in a day. I was in this car for many hours, and I couldn't believe even then, a car over half a century old, yet so nice to drive. 70, 80 miles an hour is not a problem for this car.
I can relate to that, and I've driven it from New Plymouth to the far north all in one day, which is probably about 700 kilometres, and it was absolutely fantastic.
What I mean is, Bryce, I wasn't doing 80 miles an hour in your car. I just did the calculated math and worked out that it would do that.
Well done, Fletch, but I can tell you 80 mile an hour is probably just pushing it, but I can tell you up to 70 mile an hour, I can tell you on a long trip, cars are in behind you, thinking that an old car is going to slow you down, but up to 70 to 75 mile an hour, it's got it over most cars today.
I think a lot of modern day motorists that aren't car passionate see an old car like this and get quite a shock when they see them perform as well as they do, especially leaving the traffic lights. A car like this, so sumptuous and Art Deco, is again beyond words almost. The feel of driving this car, the comfort, even in the seating, was quite astounding for its age. But keeping in mind too, back in 1955, the type of person that would have been buying this level of car would have been demanding some of those comforts as well.
I appreciate that, Fletch, and I just feel that, you know, where the cars are today, they've come a long way, but man, these cars were right up there back in 1955. And it's not until you actually get in and drive them that you realise that they had a superb car back then.
Look at the dashboard, Bryce. It's like something out of the Jetsons.
Art. Art. It's art. That's all it is art. Doesn't matter how fast you're going. That doesn't matter. You look at the dashboard because it is beautiful.
You could imagine the minds of the designers back in the day where everything that was drawn had to fit into sync with each other. Even looking at the wipers, we look across this hood and we see the wipers. And just the way that they're designed, the way they're sitting and the way they're meeting in centre, there's not 1 square inch of the car that hasn't had some attention to detail put to.
You just wouldn't see that finish today. It's just, everything's balanced. For art, that's what it's all about. It's having the right lines, the right angles, the balance, everything.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannons,
We've also got Shannons Home and Contents cover.
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannons.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
How would you like to double your garage space and work on your cars easily? Well, bring in your own hero with a Lift King hoist. Easy to install models in 1, 2 and 4 post styles. Check the very nifty Spider 2500 portable mini scissor lift. Hero hoists are either Oz certified or carry the Euro CE, your guarantee of quality construction and reliability. I regularly stand under my Lift King, so when you need a bit of a lift, why don't you go stand under yours? Martin's Panel Masters has 3 modern accident repair centres. They service Melbourne's inner, outer east and the fast-growing southeast corridor. Your vehicle will receive the best from state-of-the-art repair equipment finished beautifully from computer-based paint mixing systems, finished in Australian compliant spray booths. Martin's Panel Masters, located at Ferntree Gully and Berwick, also Box Hill Panels. Heron Forbes Machinery House has been family owned and operated for over 85 years, and it's easy to see why. Planning on welding? Look at these welding tables and clamps, air compressors and different air tools. sandblasting cabinets, through to spray guns. Everyone is welcome at Machinery House. There are competitive freight rates around Australia, and you can buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. So remember, Hare and Forbes has the range. Well, there's no doubt about it, Bryce. You have a unique collection. I know that every one of these cars means so much to you. But this one here, a 1937 Cord. Now, there's not a lot of these left on the planet.
Fletch, you're dead right. And that's probably what's made it so appealing to me, is as I start getting more selective in my collection, art becomes important, but it's also rarity. And I think this car is one that was years before its time.
Wow. I hope you look upon your TV presenters the same way.
Absolutely, Fletch. You must be all of 30 years old.
The compliments just keep on coming. A 37 Cord. Now, quite a number of years ago, I had the pleasure of riding in one of these cars. It was the designer of the car, back in the time, Gordon Burig was his name, and my good friend Mach from Shannons were over in the United States, who actually rode in one of these cars, or his car. That was quite surreal. To go these number of years down the track now and see one sitting here with all the shows that I do, they don't pop up that often. Now, how long have you had this car, Bryce?
I've had it about 4 years, bought it in New York and did a ground-up restoration on it again. And there is another one similar to it, New Zealand in it. Yep. And I had it done by the same person who restored his. Yep. So we could, they could look at that car to make sure that they got this one absolutely right. This car is so far ahead of its time that the other big manufacturers in the States saw it as a threat and basically pushed them out.
Tell us about the paint colour. Bryce, now, do you know what the original colour of the car was? Was it blue?
It was blue. They tell me that with the Cords, that you actually chose the colour that it came out. They had a whitey colour, which was one of their standard colours, which 30-40% of their cars came out in, and the rest of it was people chose the colour that they want. So this car was a blue car. I think a lot of the people back in those days, there were the dull ones, but there were some what I'd call out there colours done at that time because they were a car that deserved it.
Well, again, we're talking high end of the market here. So the purchaser back in the day, if he wanted a blue car, well, hey, he was going to get a blue car.
Exactly right, Fletch. And I think that's where Duesenberg and Cord and all that were very clever. They actually reached out for the customer's requests.
So is this usually how you spend a Saturday afternoon, Bryce?
Well, I try and get out in some of the cars sometime during the weekend. So you got to enjoy your art. You got to enjoy your art.
Certainly do.
Well, look at this dashboard.
It's beautiful. It's surprising for, again, 1937 technology, how nice it is to ride.
This is a beautiful car.
Bryce, how does it feel? Describe driving a 1937 Cord on the back roads here, regional New Zealand.
Well, it's just smooth. It's just smooth. It doesn't wallow. It just it's a beautiful car. Beautiful car.
It's as tight as a drum. There's no squeaks, no rattles.
No, look, they were made to last.
You can see why that side valve V8 went into so many applications back in the day. Just driving along here now as a passenger and feeling the torque in your back from the seat of the low down performance that these early V8s had. They really were stump pullers in their day, weren't they?
Absolutely, and apparently they used to use this motor basically for aircraft, the Lycoming motor.
Yep. Now that gearbox is beautiful. The way that changes.
Yep.
Wow.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Unbelievable. Now, people might watch and think, you know, oh, here we go. Fletch is banging on about an old car, but sincerely, that gearbox is changing gears just as smooth as a brand new car.
Well, I actually think smoother, and particularly going up the gears, I think it's smoother.
It doesn't seem right, Bryce, does it? 1937 technology. We should be hearing uncomfortable sounds, but we're not. We're experiencing smoothness. I guess it's a testament to the Cord product.
Well, I sense it might have been the German heritage of the designers who lived in America coming through and just giving that not only the American flair, but the German attention to detail and quality.
Well, Bryce, I have to thank you. How extraordinary. It's not every day of the week you get an opportunity to ride along in a brilliant 1937 Cord.
Thanks, Fletch, but I tell you what, it's probably been just as much a privilege to me having you with me who actually understands how I feel about my cars. And a lot of people don't have that emotional feeling. I believe you understand it fully, and I appreciate that.
That's okay. Look, it's a car guy thing, and we get that appreciation. It's been a great visit. It's been a few years since I've seen you. Got to know you a little bit better today, which is fantastic. We've had a real great day here. The second shed over there did a little bit of filming in there this morning, but there's even more cars back there, so we'll have to keep those for next time. What do you say, Bryce?
Next time there'll be a few more in the fleet, as well as those over there too.
Good on you, mate.
Yep.
Well,
Thanks.
thanks again for your time. He cooked me lunch. He's a good guy. Bryce, thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Fletch, and we look forward to seeing you back here next time.
Thank you.
And remember, Art Deco and Wearable Arts in Nelson.
There you go.
Yep.
There's an event coming up. Try and get to that one. Thanks, Bryce.
Thanks, Fletch.
And don't forget, if you have anything to do with a classic bike, car or a truck club, make sure it's listed on the Shannons Club for all the world to see. Find out more information when you visit shannons.com.au. Well, there you have it. I hope you've really enjoyed this week's special episode of Classic Restos, a quick return trip back to New Zealand to show you just some of the amazing classic car collection belonging to Bryce Barnett here in New Plymouth in the Taranaki region. As I say at the end of every episode of Classic Restos, until next week, no matter where you're watching the show from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Hare and Forbes Machinery House, Pace Farm, Hero Hoists, and Martin's Panel Masters.